We're live. Yay. Is it working? Okay. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this on YouTube, because as we all know, nobody watches this live. Or I guess a couple people do, 3 or 4 people. Half of which are probably staff. Right. Thank you for joining us for the latest Sylvia Findings live stream presentation. I know you're all just waiting with bated breath for me to talk about the new Cabochon findings that we got in, and it's a cool thing, and it was a necessary thing because let me just show you, like, you know, this is our most basic. Where am I looking at? There we go. Like our most basic. You know, oval gemstone setting, and they work great. You know, basket settings, you know, you gotta have them. It's kind of like the thing, we probably sell more oval basket settings than we sell almost of all the other stuff combined. Well, maybe not, that might be a little hyperbole, but you know what I mean. We sell a lot of them. It's kind of like a really super popular item, and they work great. You know, those things, they're designed for, and they work great for gemstones, faceted stones, right? Cut stones. But when you try to put a cabochon in them, right? Like this, and I haven't really set this, I just kind of hold this in place, right? But when you put a cabochon in this like this, I don't know if you can see, right? The opening in this, right? The bail is like right in the center of the basket. And all of the weight of this thing is forward of the, you know, the bail. So when you put a chain through the bail or a cording or whatever thing, all the center of gravity is out on the end, and it ends up hanging, you know, slightly forward, right? You can see that, right, at an angle, kind of like, you know, that. I mean, this is a little exaggerated. Probably wouldn't hang quite so badly, but it definitely hangs forward. You know, when it's sitting on your neck, it'll just sit however it sits, kind of thing. But if it's, you know, sitting up, it just, you know, hangs a little bit forward. And there's the other issue where the prongs are the slim, roundish prongs that are designed, you know, to be trimmed down, a little notch cut in them for the girdle of your stone, you know, blah, 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 all that stuff. These are pre-notched, but you could also change the height of the notch on there. But my point is that these are designed to hold faceted stones and with a girdle in, where the prongs, the only work the prongs are doing are holding the setting down in the basket, right? There's not really meant to be, or there doesn't need to be any side to side strength to these prongs. All they're doing is holding the stone down in the setting, because when you have a faceted stone, right, like, you know, cut stone with the pavilion and stuff. It's totally out of focus, right? You can all see that, right? Super. The idea is, you know, let me just turn this around for a second. Hi, Nelson. Okay. So the pavilion goes down into the basket. I don't know if you could see that, right? So a couple of things happened. You know, these prongs, all they're doing is holding the stone down, and they're not worried about the stone slipping sideways out of the setting, right? Because they can't, because the pavilion is in the way, which is kind of how these things work, right? The other reason why these are, you know, designed the way they are is that a lot of the weight, you know, ostensibly half the weight, ideally, comes out the back in the pavilion. So the center of gravity on this is much more centered with that bail up at the top, so it's not going to hang forward, right? I think might be a little heavier on the front, but not enough to make it hang weird the way a cabochon does. So for a cabochon, you really want to, and I'm going to show you one of the gold ones here, you really want to have a setting where the back of it is much shallower, right? Like a regular basket is, quite a bit, you know, taller than that to accommodate the pavilion. Now, a couple of differences between these and, you know, the normal or I shouldn't call them normal, the more traditional basket settings. On these, the prongs, like I said, are rounded. There's notches in them. And when I say rounded, they're more rounded on the outside. They're kind of like, I don't know, the inside edges are slightly flat. So, these are ostensibly kind of hybrid settings that you could put a cabochon in there. But now that we have, ones that are made specifically for cabochons, they highlight a couple differences I'm just going to show you. And again, I'm going to show you the gold one just because I think it shows up better on camera. And it also, when it's gold, it adds instant credibility, right? Because people are willing to, God, that's a really, really cool bale too. Anyway, a couple things about this that are differences. Obviously, the basket is much shallower. So when you put a stone in there, do I have a stone that's this size? I don't think I do. I could try to put that other stone in that I had in this one temporarily. But it's not really going to fit. But anyway, you can see the center of gravity is much closer to the thing. The loop that the bale is soldered to is on the upper end of that thing. So it's much closer center of gravity to the stone. So it won't hang weird. It won't hang forward when you're setting this. Also, the prongs are designed specifically for cabs in that they're a little bit wider than the traditional basket setting, right? And they're domed on the outside. They come to a point and they're flat on the inside. And the reason why the prongs are a little bit wider has to do with what I was talking about before, about how on the traditional basket, the prongs are really only meant to hold the stone down into the basket so that the pavilion can't slide out. With a regular cabochon, right, if you have a regular, and especially if the prongs are poorly placed, or if it's something like a pair setting, right, like this, especially the pair settings that have the single prongs up at the top, if you put a cabochon into one of those, like if you put a regular faceted stone with a big pavilion in there, the pavilion traps it in the basket setting and it's not going to go anywhere, right? And that single chevron prong at the top and the two prongs at the bottom are just holding it in place, to stop it from being able to slide out, sideways, and to hold it down into the setting. And the pavilion is doing half the work to hold the stone in there. So there's no pavilion with a cabochon, so yeah, all the work has to be done with the prongs. That's why they're a little bit wider, right? And they're flat on the inside. So when you push that down onto the cabochon, they lay down, nice and flat, right? To kind of mirror the surface of the cabochon. And they're wider, so the stone isn't able to slide out the side. As if you've ever had one of these, like a cabochon into a traditional pair setting, it's very easy for the stone to slide out the top, right, to shift and slide out the top, because there's no pavilion holding it down into the setting, right? So with these, we've done a couple things with these pair settings. We've done the double prongs at the top instead of the single, more traditional chevron prong at the top, which I kind of way prefer this anyway. Those single chevron prongs, they work great for faceted stones in limited occasions. But I find with, if you're not familiar with it, if you're not like super experienced, or even moderately experienced, a beginner, it's very easy to chip the tips of those, pair settings or marquee settings too. I have that a lot. It's very easy to chip the very tiny corner off because, kind of like in your mind, you're thinking like, I need the prongs to hold the stone down. And yeah, you do, but you just need to hold it in place. You don't really need it to push down onto the thing. And it's very easy to add a little more pressure than you need when you're setting it and breaking those tips off. These double prongs alleviate that completely. And again, they're nice and wide, nice and tall. I don't think I have a really good sample of a pear stone. Maybe this is totally not in the right size for it, but we can try one of the bigger ones. right? So if this is up in there, that's not really going to work, but you just pretend. That'll definitely hold that in there, and having that a little bit of a prong on either side of the top of that pair setting will stop it from sliding sideways and hold it in place. So this was, I think, a much needed. Is that going to work in there? Nope. A little bit taller one. A much needed addition to our lines. You know, it's something that, you know, I mean, most of our settings are kind of interchangeable. You can use them with faceted stones. You can use them with cabochons. Right? This isn't going to work. But, you know, assuming this was, you could actually get away with using this, you know, for a faceted stone, assuming the pavilion doesn't stick out the back. Right, which a giant pavilion like this. This is one of the gemstones that we picked up at a show. I saw them and I thought, oh, this is a really good example of why gem cutters are so famous for making ridiculously deep pavilions and why they do it. You know, it doesn't add to the beauty of the you know, the table or the facets, but it does do two things that stone sellers love. It adds to the weight of the stone, so they could charge more, especially if they're charging by the carat, which most stone sellers do. And it also, it darkens the color. So, I mean, you can't really see in this because it's a thing, but it's kind of like a, almost like a light green color. And if this were a more traditional pavilion on this thing, it would probably be almost transparent. But because it's deeper and the light passes through a much thicker piece of stone, it's much darker. Anyway, you've heard me rant about the stone cutters before. And there's another one. So, what have we got? We haven't put these out yet, or I haven't even taken pictures. And we're literally in the middle of opening bags. Nelson just assembled this quickly this morning. So we've got, and I'm probably not going to go through every one. And these are not really in order anyway. There's some rounds here. So we've got rounds. We've got pairs. We've got ovals. And I think that's it. We've got lots of them in different sizes and, you know, different things. So I think there's like altogether something like 30 new settings for cabochons in rounds, pairs, and ovals. So keep an eye out for those. If you are ever questioning if a stone will work or not in a setting, you know, just email me, mark@canadafindings.com, or, you know, get a hold of us through Etsy or whatever. I'm normally the one who answers all those technical questions on Etsy, because I'm, you know, the technical guy, I guess. Ideally, you know, you send me a picture of the stone, of the front of the stone, you know, a picture of the front of the shape, and a picture of the pavilion of the stone. I think the easiest way to get a picture of the pavilion is to, if you were to put this upside down on a table or something, you know, and then move your camera up or down until you reach a point right about there where the top of the surface of the table is level with the bottom of the stone, or the camera lens, so you can get an exact-ish, you know, idea of the pavilion of the stone. That's super helpful because, you know, I can pretty much tell immediately, you know, if the pavilion is going to be a problem. And, you know, I just talking about the differences between cabochons and faceted stones and why we decided to enlarged the range of findings to include these Cabochon settings is specifically because of the issues, between stones. Stones are stones. 6 by 8 millimeter, or as I call it, like a 10 by 12 millimeter stone, oval stone, is not the same as a 10 by 12 millimeter oval stone, right? There's so many potential variables. All of those variables kind of go away when you're talking about cabochons, because the back of those stones are all flat, and as long as you accommodate that in the setting, it'll be perfect every time, perfect fit every time. All you need for a cabochon is the perimeter dimensions. Now, you do have kind of an issue sometimes with cabochons where the rough material that they use to start cutting this, because it starts out as like a slab of stones that they cut in whatever, like a slab or whatever, and then you trace out your shape that you want to think, and then you cut around it and you file around it with lapidary wheels. I'm not going to go into the whole concept, but it's and then you dome it, right? So if the original piece is like, I think personally, I find like the most appealing thickness for a cabochon is 5 or 6 millimeters. Any more than that, and you run into issues with just the height of them. And any thinner than that, and you end up with having less room to have a pleasing dome on the top. And the whole point of a cabochon is it's just a stone with a flat bottom and a beautiful dome on the top. And if you don't have a thick enough cab, you can't have that problem with that dome. Now, these cabochon settings that we've made, they're designed so the prongs will work beautifully up to about a 6 or 7 millimeter, thick stone. If it's thicker than that, it'll probably still work, assuming the lapidarist, lapidarist. No, I think it's just called lapidary. You're a lapidary, right? If you do lapidary, or are you lapidarist? I don't know. Somebody will tell me in the comments, I'm sure. Or not. Where was I? Right. Depending on how you cut the edges, and this is an issue. Like, I'm a jewelry guy, fabrication, so done fabrication and casting for 30 years. So for me, when I look at a stone critically, I'm looking at what's the easiest way to set this, and often, more often than not, I find that gem cutters, stone cutters, are clearly not jewelers, because they do everything possible to make it difficult to set the stones. And one of the worst things that I've seen, and this is quite good actually, this one, it was a super inexpensive stone. I think I paid like $6 for this. Can you see how the taper from the edge starts all the way from the edge and goes all the way up, right? So even if you're 3 millimeters off the base of this thing, there's a taper, right? So if you push the prong inside there, a person who practices lapidary is known as a lapidarist. Okay, thank you. That's Lise, right? That's got to be Lise. Thanks, Lise. What was I saying? All right, so even if your prongs are only about 3 millimeters tall, they would still hold this down, because 3 millimeters away from the base of this thing, there's a taper enough that the prong will be able to hold this in place. Now, again, these are slightly taller than that. I think off the top of my head, looking at these are probably like 4 millimeters, maybe 4.5 millimeters tall. So they would work beautifully on this, beautifully on one that's a little bit thinner, beautiful on one that's a little bit thicker, because these are designed specifically for cabochons. The thing that I was about to talk about before I got sidetracked by the whole lapidarist thing was the issue that I see with some cabochons is, how do I say this delicately? Some lapidarists are just lazy. I don't know any other way to do it. They cut it out of a slab, and at the beginning it's a flat edge, and a flat edge all the way around the side, and then they make the dome, great. But if you only make the dome near the top, and you have a little bit of a curve at the edge, and then you have a flat side, boy, you better hope that whatever prongs you have in your setting are taller than that flat edge on that thing, because no matter what, if it's not, the cab is nigh unusable. Yes, you could glue it onto the thing, but you know, jewelers don't like to use glue if you don't have to. We always joke that glue is a four-letter word, right? Which it just occurred to me that some people don't even know what that means, right? A four-letter word is, when somebody says, oh, it's a four-letter word, they just are talking about it's a curse word, it's a bad word. So, neither here nor there. But I mean, ideally, you don't want to be gluing stones into your settings. Your settings should be, you know, nice. And yeah, if you want to blame the settings, you know, fine. But you know, we are making these settings to work for the majority of stones instead of, you know, things. And just, if you want to get a custom settings done for your cabs that are 10 millimeters thick, you know, we're happy to make them for you. You know, we'll do whatever you want. But if you're making cabs for people to use, you know, 6 millimeters, start with the slabs that are 6 millimeters thick. You know, when you're cutting that slab with that big diamond saw off the thing, you can adjust that. You know, you don't have to make it as thick as you know, think. I mean, obviously some stones are more brittle than others and more prone to cleaving than others. So maybe thicker is not always a bad thing. You know, but most stones, I've seen them, right? I can't think I've ever seen a stone that was made super thick. Like I see a lot of rose quartz, a lot of labradorite, spectralite, whatever you want to call it, where the slabs are super thick. The cabs are so crazy thick, you know. But I've also seen those same stones where the cabs are normal size, so, or I shouldn't say normal size, are more usable size. So I know it can be done. Do it. I think that's it. I was a little disjointed. I went a little bit off on a couple tangents, but the most important thing is just to keep an eye out. These will be online soon. I think we have to take pictures and we have to do, you know, Photoshop them to remove the backgrounds and make them look pretty. So you're looking at what we want you to look at instead of, you know, whatever. Oh, what a cool background or stuff. I can get off on a tangent about jewelry photography, which I might do that for another live stream thing. Although that's kind of like a very niche subject, right? Or unless you want to, I mean, if you'd like to see something about photography, let us know. You know, in the comments, or send me a message. We'll you know, we'll definitely get back to you, but you know, I might consider doing it. That's it. And thanks, Liz. It's nice to see you online too. I don't know, we're online almost every week, so almost every week, except when we're traveling, or yeah, we try. Anyway, I'm done. I have nothing else. If you have any questions about the new cabs, if you want to know what ranges of sizes they come in, you know, I can give you that information. Just get a hold of us. Either, you know, if you do the chat function, I think it's somewhere on Facebook. I personally am not on Facebook. But I know that we have like the live chat on the website, you know, that if you click on the thing, you get open the live chat. I know that there's a way I think it's through Messenger. Are we on next Wednesday? Yeah, I think so, right? Yes. We're not going anywhere next Wednesday. Yeah, we have a show coming up this week, and I should probably plug that in Surrey. You can look on the website, in the events page. I'm pointing as though we're on the website. It's on this side of the menu with the events page. Not here, not on Facebook, or not on thing. But if you're on our website, it's somewhere up here, the events page, and you can look at there's like a calendar that shows all the shows, and I think the show is in Surrey this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and then we don't have another show until December, beginning of December, right? P&E.
No, there's a Montreal show.
Oh, Montreal show. That's right, Montreal show coming up. I'll get you those dates next week. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. Take care of yourself. Take care of the planet. Take care of your mental health. And we will see you next week, where we might talk about photography. Probably not, but we might. Take care. Okay, bye. There was a button. There it is. Finish.